Welcome back to Perkins Pipes. If I've got the indescribably beautiful RBC meerschaum out today, then you can rest assured we're going to be talking about something to do with art. As always, let's get this beautiful 100-year-old meerschaum lit. Let's get to talking. Enjoy this pipe so much, and so grateful to my friend Jeremy for giving this to me. Before we can get into the piece of art, or shall I say the graphic art, the sculpture we're going to talk about today, I need to take you to a piece of poetic art first, and that is Virgil's Aeneid, the Latin epic poem. I'm going to have a delightful school version here. This dates to 1883. So says the interior of the book. And in book 2 of the Aeneid, and I'm not going to recapitulate the whole story, but this is the story of the Trojan War hero Aeneas who flees Troy with his family and friends, and is ultimately going to be plant a new colony in Italy, and from that will come Rome. And in book 2, he has Christ landed in North Africa with the North African queen Dido, queen of Carthage. And he is telling her the story. She's asked the story. She says, tell me about the end of Troy, how Troy fell. So books 2 and 3 are comprised of him telling that story. And starting around lines 199, this is book 2, line 199, and following, and really goes through at least through about 224. He tells the story of the priest of Neptune, a fellow named Laocoön, who is the one who earlier had said, I don't trust this Trojan horse thing. There's this horse that the Greeks have left on the beach. They claim it's a gift for the gods. He said, I don't buy it. And the famous line, Timeo Danaos et dona ferentes. He says, I fear the Greeks even when they bring us gifts. Well, something happens that the Trojans completely misunderstand. Giant sea serpents come and attack Laocoön and his 2 sons. Now, the serpents actually are signs of treachery and signs that you really shouldn't trust this horse, that the Greeks are up to something. The Trojans misinterpret it, and they say, see, this was a gift of the gods. Laocoön is being punished by the gods. We should take the horse into the city. So they misread the signs. And this passage is justifiably famous and a work of art on its own as literature because of the incredible graphic detail that Virgil gets into. And he says, picking up here in line 201, Laocoön ductus Neptunos sortes sacerdos. Laocoön was chosen as a priest of Neptune by lot solemnes tauringentem mactabadaras. He was sacrificing a huge bull at the customary altars. Ecautem gemini tenedo tranquilla per alta. Horresco referens. He says, behold. Now, this is Aeneas telling the story to Queen Dido. He says, behold, twin snakes coming through the tranquil deep from the island of Tenedos. I shudder recalling this story. Immensis orbibus anguis incumbent pelago. They lie upon the surface of the sea with their huge coils. Paranter quad litura tendon, and stretch equally toward the shore. So the snakes kind of going back and forth toward shore. Pectora quorinter fluctus recta ubique sanguineae superant undas. They raise their chests above the waves. You can imagine the snakes are kind of going like this, and then all of a sudden they rise up like this, right? Going across the waters. And their blood red crest, which again should have been a symbol, kind of, it looks like the crest of a helmet. Trojan didn't pick up on that. And then he continues describing their attack toward shore. And I always, when I read this with my students, I laugh at the line 212. Defugimus visu exsangues. Aeneas says we fled bloodless at the sight. And I always add, no kidding. If I saw giant sea serpents coming toward shore, I would flee bloodless at the sight as well. Then he says, Ili agmene certo Laocoön peton. They attack Laocoön in like a battle line. So again, kind of got some warlike imagery there. Ad primum parva duorum corpora natorum serpens amplexus uterque implicat. And each one twists around the bodies, the small bodies of his two sons. Miseros morsu de pasceter artus. And each one feeds upon their wretched limbs. So these snakes are devouring his sons. Post ips auxilio subeunt tela ferentem corripiunt. Afterward, they snatch him, and they spirisque ligan ingentibus, and they bind him up with their huge coils. Et iam bis medium plexi bis cola squamea circum tergadati superan capita cervicibus altis. And they go around his body twice, and he's like, oh, no, no, no. And the snakes now are around his body, and they're towering over his head, and he's looking up at them. And then it says, Ille simul manibus tendit develere nodos. He tries to rip them apart with his hands. Perfusus sanie vitas atroque veneno clamore simul horrendos ad sidera talat. And drenched his holy headwear, the fillet that he's wearing as a priest of Neptune, is drenched with atro veneno, with black poison. Causes him to hurl screams to the very stars. Because you realize it's not just black venom, but it's actually sanie as well, which hopefully you haven't been eating right before watching this video, is chunks of bloody matter, gobbets, right? Which would be his half-digested sons. These snakes are vomiting out onto his head. Pretty gross stuff, you have to admit. Okay, that's the background. Now, the art. Somewhere in the 1st century, there was a wonderful sculpture group called that we now call Laocoön and his sons. And the extraordinary thing, lost for hundreds of years, and it was discovered, archaeologists discovered it in the year 1506. Now, it was broken. And I'm going to pull up an image of it for you here. Laocoön, you see the snakes around him, his two sons. And there's Laocoön, he's trying to rip the snakes apart, just like Virgil described. Well, this arm of his right arm, was broken off. And in the 1500s, now we would never do this kind of thing today, but one of the things they would do is say, okay, well, what should that have looked like? Let's fabricate a new one, put it on so we can display it. We would say, leave it as it is. And so the great architect and Bramante had a contest to say, okay, well, who can design the correct arm? How do we think it should be posed and so forth and sculpted? And all the artists of the time thought that the arm should be stretched out as you see it in this picture. Of him trying to pull the snakes off of him. Michelangelo said no. He said, I don't think so. He said, I think the arm actually is coming back inward toward the body. Something of a less heroic pose. He's to heighten the really the pathos of the scene is being depicted there. And the fact that if you have this arm going out, it breaks this kind of oval symmetry. You can kind of notice there's an oval symmetry to the piece, but that arm breaks that symmetry. And if you bend the arm back, it keeps that symmetrical shape. The decision was made to make the arm extended, and indeed, that's what they did. And that's what was on display in the Vatican Museum for about 400 years. In fact, you'll find old pictures of that. In fact, that's what I showed you here. In 1906, somebody was going through an architectural, archaeological area where there were bits and pieces of this, that, and the other thing lying around. And this guy says, that arm's lying right there. I think I know where that goes. I think that's the Laocoön arm. And sure enough, it was. They discovered that would have fit perfectly. The resculpted, extended arm was taken off. The original was attached back, and I'm going to bring that image up here for you now. And that's the image that you see today, the real sculpture going back to the 1st century BC. Beautiful piece of art. Let's just take a look at that for a moment. Amazing knowledge of human anatomy, musculature, skeletal structure, especially the twisted body of Laocoön. Now, I also joke with my students about this as well. Laocoön and his sons do seem rather ripped, you have to admit. But incredible knowledge of the human body and how to depict it. And just a beautiful, beautiful, powerful piece. And obviously Michelangelo was right. His artistic sense told him what it should have been and indeed what it was. So, a couple questions for you. Do you know the story of Laocoön and his sons? Do you know it from the Aeneid? Do you know this sculpture? Are you familiar with it? Did you know this story about the two different arms? And then, what do you think of this sculpture? Just, feast your eyes upon it for a moment. As I like to do, feasting my eyes on this beautiful meerschaum pipe. What do you think of it? Do you like it? Do you like the power of it? Do you like the struggle? And you realize all the motion that is captured in this obviously static piece of stone. Folks, as Malcolm Guite likes to say, I do these little things in order at last to do nothing. Or as I like to say in Latin, Parva ut tandem, nihil agam. Have a wonderful day.